Today's hot topic then. It's not exciting, this. I have to admit. I can't dress it up as being snazzy and I could do a song and dance in the middle of it, but that won't be that great. So this is just some basic information. Essential information. Good word. Better than basic. This is essential information. I could have got that. Go and sit down. You're becoming scary.
Sorry.
Right. This is essential. It's not just basic. This is essential information that you'll need to be successful at Coventry University. It's about avoiding plagiarism. Now, plagiarism is a term that you've all heard, I'm sure. We'll be spending time during the course of this talking about plagiarism, talking about Harvard referencing, and helping you understand what that means. There's a massive support available to you to help you understand how to write better and more sophisticated academic essays. Any other form of academic work that you've got other than essays, such as exams, such as portfolios and so forth. At the end of this session, the aim is that you'll understand fully what we mean by plagiarism and other types of academic dishonesty, and we'll explain, I don't know who the we is, I'll explain what we mean by academic dishonesty. We'll look at how you avoid plagiarizing other people's work, and we'll understand where to seek guidance and support for this not very complicated, but often in people's minds very scary topic. This is a system, a taxonomy is a system, a methodology for identifying and linking together different types of information. So this is a taxonomy from a person called Bloom's, and it's designed to show how educationally we progress. We looked previously at learning styles. We looked previously at the learning cycle. And what we implicitly saw was that we start off by beginning just simply to understand and have some knowledge of some activity. Doesn't matter whether it's academic or not. We use the example of riding a bicycle. We just begin to understand how to ride a bicycle. And over a period of time we become more sophisticated and can start to take on more increasingly sophisticated activities ourselves. It's the same with education. When you start off on a particular subject, or start off generally in education at all you're doing is building up a level of knowledge and a level of understanding, that you have some knowledge. Over a period of time then, you start to realize that people have written theories about these pieces of knowledge, and you can start to apply those theories to new examples, to case studies and so forth. Having applied theory to case studies, you can then start to think about and analyze how that might be applied in the future in other areas. You might start to recognize trends in thoughts. Then, as you become increasingly sophisticated, you start to be able to put various theories together and have a viewpoint in the end of your own. So the purpose of an academic essay, as an example, is to demonstrate that you've read some material and you've read some other material and you have a viewpoint on those pieces of material that you're presenting as your own conclusion. So when you're writing an academic essay, what we're really looking for is, what do you think? Yes, you've read some books, that's great, and you've read some articles, that's great, but what is your conclusion? What is your assessment? What is your analysis? How have you brought these pieces of information together, and how are you trying to produce a new piece of information? So by the third year, when you do your dissertation, what we're looking for is for you to produce that new piece of information. You spent 3 years reading and learning and understanding, combining and applying, looking at case studies, understanding how these theories have been applied in practice, and at the third year in the dissertation, you take a topic that you're interested in and you come up with a new idea, a new piece of research. So Bloom's taxonomy then is designed to show how you develop as an academic, as a student. The assumption is, all the way through, that you're developing your own thoughts and you're using other people's work to develop your thoughts. And in the dissertation, you present your ideas, and it's your idea, not someone else's. So academic dishonesty, then, is an attempt by you or someone linked to yourself to gain an unfair advantage, which usually means extra marks, by doing one of a number of different types of activities. And examples of academic dishonesty include, but are not necessarily limited to, terms such as collusion, falsification, deceit, cheating, and plagiarism. We're going to have a look at each of those in turn. So these are terms that hopefully you can put to the back of your mind and forget, because they won't apply to you, and they don't apply to the vast majority of students at this university and the vast majority of students at any university. But the fact that they do apply to some students is the reason we're addressing this issue at this very early stage in your academic career. So we begin with the term collusion. Collusion means two people working together. So in an academic dishonesty context, it means two students working together in order to gain extra marks in some way, or to alleviate someone's workload so they could get extra marks, or to help them out of a situation so they can gain extra marks. So what this means is, without official approval, so that means without it being part of the assignment brief, two students or more are working together to help all or some of that group. In some instances, of course, you will be asked to do group work, and the assignment will be clearly based upon a group of people working together and presenting a project, report, or some other activity as a group, and you will be marked as a group. But where the assignment is individual, you have to produce the work yourself without other people's help, other than those whom you are clearly citing and referencing within your work. And we'll come back to that. So collusion, then, is two students working together. In those instances, both students may be penalised. Now, an example of occlusion, for instance, would be where one student knows a subject very well and another student doesn't. And the second student, student B, who doesn't know the subject very well, asks the first student, student A, for some help. At that point, collusion starts, because the student B, the weaker student, should have gone to the tutor or to other areas of support to get help and advice. By asking another student to help them, the two begin to collude. And it doesn't matter that A is helping B, both students are guilty of collusion. And penalties apply in all of these instances. And as we'll see, the penalty is usually a mark of 0. So there it is a difficult situation where a friend of yours is struggling or has run out of time or has been feeling unwell and says, can you give me your notes, or can I have a look at your essay, or whatever it might be. The answer on student A's part, the good student, is no, I can't help. And that will be difficult. Falsification means that within an essay or an exam or any other piece of research or output, the student is making up pieces of information. And we'll look at examples of these a bit later on. So within academic work, when you're reading books, we're assuming that you're presenting the books and the ideas in the books as if they were true, because they are true. Falsification then is starting when you start to make up examples of incorrect information. So this, the one we hear most about, is where you're pretending that something is yours when it isn't. Going back to Bloom's taxonomy, what we saw is there's a progression from knowledge and understanding all the way through to evaluation and synthesis, and it's based upon the idea that you're reading other people's work. And you need to acknowledge the fact that you are reading other people's work and it is informing your work. Not telling the reader where you got your information from, pretending the information is your own when it isn't, is plagiarism. And this isn't just words. It's ideas, it's theories, it's pictures, it's data, it's any aspect of that piece of work that you're presenting, which if you're trying to present it as if it was your own when it isn't, is plagiarism. So we're going to just watch a little film which will just introduce you to some aspects of this.
Well, plagiarism is really academic theft. It is the knowing, or more commonly unknowing, passing off of somebody else's ideas, research, opinions as your own.
Plagiarism is where you use anyone else's work without kind of referencing it and acknowledging that you've used someone else's work, and kind of try and pass it off as your own.
Using somebody else's ideas and passing them off as your own. So that might be writing a sentence that you've read from a book, or it might be cutting and pasting something from a website and not referencing either of those things.
Well, plagiarism can come in many forms. Certainly over the past decade or so, we've had a shift from the old style of typing up a book or writing out a book to just cutting and pasting off websites. Now, this is the most common form of plagiarism we find, certainly wholesale plagiarism, that there'll be a tendency to pull paragraphs out, kind of integrate them a little bit, move some words around, and pass that off as the work of the student. Sometimes it's just smaller instances where a couple of lines will drop in, or it'll be a quote that's not attributed, or references that are missing, paraphrasing, or the knowledge simply of having taught a module that those ideas don't belong to the student, and the student has not attributed them.
I think a lot of the time students don't realise that they're plagiarising because of potentially time management and the processes of developing effective written work. And it can be just through poor scholarship.
I think that the main reason students plagiarize is because for some of us, I guess the amount of work which you get in comparison to your college work or sixth form or wherever background you come from can be slightly overwhelming. So then if you leave your assignments to last night, you just get so stressed and you just don't know what to do and you feel like you can't do it. So I guess the easiest way is to hope for the best and copy something of internet.
Well, students can avoid plagiarising in a number of ways. Firstly is to make sure that they reference properly. We are very big on trying to teach a scholarly technique that means every idea, every concept, every quotation is cited with the surname of the author, the date of publication, and for a quotation, a page number, so that it's very clear that that is the source of that idea. And students can block off any perceived or potential plagiarism by very clearly citing.
One important way that students can avoid plagiarising is through good time management. Having a good essay plan. Ultimately, the best piece of advice I can give is that if you're in any doubt about whether you should reference or not, it probably means you should reference.
Our library website, for example, which I was using a lot in the first year, has a whole section about referencing, and it says how to reference articles, how to reference books, how to reference websites, and guide you steps by step.
But as a final check, it's a really good idea to put their essay through, turn it in, and that'll pick up any of the places where they've accidentally forgotten to reference the words.
Wise words from our colleagues up north. So what do we learn from that? What have we learned from that?
You need to reference.
You need to reference. Okay, good. What else?
You have doubt, you will reference or not, you need to reference.
If in doubt, reference.
Students tend to leave their work last minute and plagiarize.
That's right. So the key thing there is time management. It's punctuality, as you were saying before. Time management, punctuality, planning. So having a good essay plan. So planning in advance what you need to cover, doing the reading well in advance. Now many students struggle with this, particularly early on. But knowing how anxious one can get when a deadline looms and you haven't done the work, most students will not wish to put themselves in that situation again. So plan early, manage your time, have a plan for your essay, research early, do drafts, submit the drafts to the lecturer so that you can get feedback. All helps to alleviate any anxiety about doing university level work, particularly in the first year. In the second and third years, you begin to understand it better. So the Coventry University definition of plagiarism is intentionally or unintentionally. That's key. Intentionally or unintentionally. So the phrase, "I didn't know anything was wrong," is of no relevance when someone is discussing whether or not your work is plagiarized in some way. So it's intentionally or unintentionally reproducing, and by that we mean anything in terms of copying, rewording, paraphrasing, adapting, and so on. So any way in which you take someone else's piece of work and present it as if it was your own, even if you've changed the words, even if you've moved things around a little bit, that's still an attempt to pass off someone's work as if it was your own, without properly acknowledging where you got it from. And the important thing then is that the important way to get out of plagiarism is to properly acknowledge where you got it from. That's all that is. So plagiarism then is an attempt to gain academic benefit. By that I mean presenting it as an assessment. When you hand in your assessment or upload it on Turnitin, you sign to say that you understand Coventry University's definition of plagiarism and you confirm that this is all your work.
But if we have the same ideas with some author on the web, on the website, if we have close ideas.
Okay, that's a good point. I'll come back to that point. Okay, I'm just going through the basics at the moment. So that's our definition of plagiarism. Intentionally or negligently allowing such reproduction to happen may also constitute plagiarism. So we talked about collusion, but collusion may also be plagiarism. So you using someone else's work and them allowing you to use someone else's their work can also be plagiarism. So what we're saying here is that unless this is a group piece of work and you've been formally advised that this is a group piece of work, all research, all thought processes must be your own work. Where the thought processes aren't your own, then they're referenced. So there are two types of plagiarism, generally speaking: copying from other students and copying words from books, directly from books or other sources. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about plagiarism, and that's why the people in the film were talking about cut and pasting. Because very often you just simply cut and paste a paragraph into a piece of work and change the words. That's still plagiarism. All students involved in the copying of plagiarism will be penalised, even the original author of the assignment. So you might present a piece of work that is based upon work that someone did in another semester or a previous year. All of the people concerned can be assessed for plagiarism and collusion, perhaps. There are ways, of course, of supporting your own work. So if we say that using another person's phrases or sentences without putting quotation marks around them is considered plagiarism, then the way to avoid plagiarism is simply to show this is a quotation. It's a quotation because I've got quotation marks at the beginning of the quote and at the end of the quote. So it's easy. Yes?
It says that even if you copy or paste the sentence or the paragraph, and even if you cite it, it's also plagiarism?
No.
Mark around then is considered plagiarism.
Oh, I see, for the quotation marks, yes. you have to show that so you have to show that a quote is a quote.
So you need to have a quote there. Like you can't,
Yes.
you can't just write it.
No, so if you've got to be or not to be, which is some famous words from William Shakespeare, what you should have is quotes around that to show that these are specifically the words I have taken from somewhere and they have come from Shakespeare. And we'll come into the detail of how you do that. Now these are details. So at this stage what I'll say is plagiarism isn't black and white.
Yeah.
It's a view taken, a decision taken by an academic or a group of academics in the end as to what the intent is and what the actions were by the student or students. Remember, the attempt is to gain an unfair advantage over other students, which usually means trying to get more marks. We do say negligently or knowingly allowing this to happen is plagiarism or collusion. So what we're doing is saying there's a whole manner of ways in which we can try and address this particular topic. So do this correctly. But what we're also trying to say, and what we'll say a bit later on, is that we wish to be very supportive. There's a lot of support available. There's a lot of facilities available to help you with all of this kind of work because it is difficult. So I want to come back to this idea about the same ideas, using the same ideas as someone else. I want to talk about how this works in practice a little later on. So self-plagiarism is also something that you can be penalised for. So self-plagiarism is where you're copying something that you did previously. When you submit an assignment, you can't submit the same or a similar assignment for another module.
Oh.
So if you're doing something similar to this module next year, as you probably will, I think, or you come across a topic that you have done an essay for previously, it might be in college, it might be in the first year, you can't submit that same piece of work.
Yeah, but if in my past work I took a good grade, it's my ideas, why can't I use them again?
You can use them again if you reference the source. So remember, what we're doing here is we're talking always about instances where you're not referencing. And we'll come on to referencing in a moment. So this is all about you not showing the source of the information. It's pretending the information has come from you when it's come from your friend. It's pretending it's come from you where you copied it from a website. So we're talking only about the definitions of what these things are.
Even if I work hard, like it's my idea. Previously, I did it by my own. I get a good mark, and I have the same assignment next model, and I used it. Is it plagiarism also?
Yes. All of this goes through a system called Turnitin. Now you heard the phrase Turnitin before. You might have come across the word Turnitin subsequent to this. Turnitin is called a plagiarism checker. It isn't a plagiarism checker. It's a similarity checker. What Turnitin is a system used by most universities and colleges around the world to look at the similarity between the work that is submitted by you through Turnitin matched against every other piece of published work that it can find. So that's all the published journals, publications themselves, websites, students' work and so forth. It's constantly checking and constantly updated because every time you upload a piece of information to Turnitin, it goes into a huge database. So the next time you submit the same piece of work for a different module, it will be spotted.
Yeah, but that's not fair.
Well, we'll come on to that.
Can we use Turnitin, for example?
We'll come on to that. I'm taking this step by step. Okay. Don't panic about this, right?
No, because it's a serious matter.
It is a serious matter.
You're gonna be punished with 0, even if you are trying to maybe misunderstand it or you're trying to.
No. Let me stop you. You're getting too excited and anxious again. We're just taking this step by step. This is like good cop, bad cop. I'm the bad cop at the moment.
Yeah.
I'll be the good cop in a moment. Right? But at the moment, I'm saying don't do it. Do anything wrong and we'll get you. Because we've got this system. Turn it in. This is Turnitin, as an example of Turnitin. So you put information into Turnitin, you submit it through a link, it's then checked, and a period of time later, a figure comes out. The figure comes out as a percentage, from 0, of course, to 100. The figure presents a percentage of your work which is similar to others.
97. Oh my god.
Similar to others. It's color-coded because lectures are simple and we need to be told it's red. Oh my goodness, that means it's important. So this is, Turnitin is a similarity checker. It gives you information. That's all it does. The academic then has to check that information and understand whether or not it's plagiarism or just copying. Because the way to avoid plagiarism is by referencing. As soon as you put a reference against a piece of work, it doesn't become plagiarized. It might be still collusion, etc., etc., but the starting point is, I've got a piece of information here, here's an idea, and this is where I got it from. Once you've got those two pieces together, the piece of information and the reference, and we'll discuss these in a moment, okay? Once you've got the piece of information and the reference, it stops being plagiarism. It can still be all sorts of things, but at that point, generally it isn't plagiarism. It becomes other things, potentially. So you might have an essay which is 100%, but if you've got quotations and references, it's not plagiarism, it's just not a good essay. If we go back to Bloom's taxonomy, what we were showing in that triangle was a progression from knowledge and understanding up to analysis and evaluation and synthesis. What we're trying to get you to do when we're asking you to develop an assignment of some kind is to say simply, I read this book, I got some information from this book, I read this article, I got some information from this article. I'm putting into my essay to show you how I've developed my argument. And my conclusion is this. And you get marked on the conclusion, really. You get marked on how well you developed the argument, but mainly it's what is your thoughts. We want to know what you think. So if you have an essay which is 100% other people's works correctly referenced, it's not plagiarism, but it's not your own academic work. So you'd get a mark of nil. But not for plagiarism. Plagiarism carries with it other penalties. So this is what Turnitin looks like, and you click on that link. So it tells me then that this essay has come from a variety of sources, the largest one of which was submitted to the London School of Commerce. There are various other areas in which this came from, but mainly it's copied from an essay submitted to the London School of Commerce. And what I can then do is I send a request to the tutor concerned, who then sends me the paper. So I can confirm that it has come from the London School of Commerce, and we can then pursue that person, if we wish to, for copying that piece of paper. It doesn't matter to us how the person got that information. We're not looking for the excuses. It doesn't matter to us. You might know the person at the London School of Commerce, you might have bought the essay from a website, you might have done all sorts of things. In the end, it isn't your work.
Can we use the same source, the same program to turn it in?
Yes. So each module generally allows you to submit drafts to Turnitin. So you can submit drafts through Turnitin, and then you submit a final one, which you can't change, which goes on to the repository.
Where is this?
Where the links are always on Moodle.
We already have them.
You can't see them yet. So that's Turnitin. So it gives you an analysis of where the similarities are, and it allows the tutor then to make a decision as to whether or not this is worth pursuing. And there's all sorts of avenues open to the tutor, and it might be simply to mark it and to say, you've spent too much time using other people's work, you need to develop your own voice, it's called, your own academic style and voice. So don't get too worried by Turnitin.
When are
don't
we
get
going to...
too worried by plagiarism, because we now talk about how to avoid it.
Okay. Well, when are we going to see the link for Eternity?
Specifically in this module, you want to see the link for Eternity in this module.
Isn't one for every...
So down here, you can't see this at the moment. Okay, but down here, there's the link for the draft assessment for your Turnitin link. Okay, this is how I see Moodle as a tutor. I can switch my role as if I was a student, and now you can no longer see it.
Unfair.
Okay, you can only see what I'm allowing you to see.
Yeah.
So you've got to understand, you've got to believe, you've got to trust that we know a little bit about what's going on, and we have done this before, we're taking it step by step.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't need to know at this stage how to upload things for this module. I'm not interested in showing you how to upload things to Turnitin for this module, because we're not ready there yet. Okay.
You mean this course or other?
This module. Other modules you're doing will differ.
Because, for example, this is going to help me for other modules.
Sorry?
Like I'm already getting some assignments, so
Great.
much better that I use it now for the other assignments. Yes.
No, you have to use it for others. If you use whatever the tutor for the module is assigning for you, you do. At this stage, we are only into week 4. There is no need to use Turnitin. You have nothing to submit a draft for. So there is no point in showing you the rest of the term, because otherwise you'll get distracted. We need to focus each week on a particular topic, and you do some reflective work on that topic. That's the aim of this module. Okay, it's reflection. Right, so referencing is the way in which you can support your work. So referencing simply means that you know that you've read a piece of work because you've got a reference. You're referencing where you got it from. So why do we reference? We reference because we're developing academic students. We want to demonstrate that we have read a wealth and depth of literature, and we can demonstrate what books we've read, what pages we found interesting, and what thoughts we've got from other people that we're using ourselves to build up our argument. It allows us to substantiate an argument. If we say, as Shakespeare said, and we can put the quote in and the reference to what Shakespeare said, that allows the reader to understand, I can believe you, because you've told me where you got the information from. So the reference is simply you telling the reader where you got the information from, and it follows a format. So there are all sorts of reasons why you use referencing. Another reason is simply to say, I appreciate that I'm learning, and I'm learning based upon things that other people have also learned and have published. So as Google say, stand on the shoulders of giants, we're saying, when we're referencing, we appreciate that our work, my thoughts, have come from other people. I'm just taking their thoughts and moving them on a little bit with my own viewpoints. But of course there are other reasons, which is also to avoid plagiarism. So it's important to acknowledge all the source texts in any piece of academic writing and or presentation. So one of the key issues here then, it comes back to the point that you were making, which is, what if you've got a reference on every line? That's the trick of learning how to write an academic essay, because you have to limit yourselves to the number of references you use, because otherwise there is no you, there is no your thought process. What you do, let's say, is to read, say, 5 books and get a number of ideas from those books and present those, rather than pretending that you've read loads of books. Now you should ask, when you're doing some written work, how many references the tutor is looking for, and they should give you their understanding. Because the danger is, at this early stage, is you reference everything. Today was sunny, Smith 1990. I went outside, Jones 1556. Because you don't know what to reference. And in the video they said if you're unsure, then reference. But that means you get a reference on almost every thought that you've had. So that's why you have to pick and choose. You choose the best references, the best sources, and you use them, rather than having this broad range of, here's a load of stuff I read. But that comes with practice, but you need guidance on some parts of that. So here's an example of a quotation or a source. So critical thinking is the mental process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information to reach an answer or conclusion. We're doing critical thinking next week, so it's a little heads up, really. And here's a reference down at the bottom. Now the issue is there are large numbers of referencing styles. There's a style of referencing from the American Psychological Association. There's a style called the Chicago Manual style. There's a referencing style called the Modern Language Association, one from the IEEE. There's the BibTeX, bibliography style. So there's a whole variety of styles available.
What do you think, Harvard?
We use Harvard. We use the CU, the Coventry University Harvard referencing style, which is a similar style to most universities in the UK within the social sciences. If you're doing law, you'd be using a different system, for example. And that sometimes causes difficulties for students who are doing law in the same faculty as here, but also a social sciences, say management course, because they're not used to using Harvard referencing. So Harvard referencing is the style, CU Harvard referencing is the specific style. There are some slight details as to what the difference is between Harvard referencing or Staffordshire University reference, Harvard referencing, and our own. But they're not worth getting into. On the website, on Moodle also, on our Moodle, there's the referencing guide. You can read it, it's easy to understand, and it gives you examples of every type of referencing requirement you will come across. And all this means, is that you have two pieces of information. You have two pieces of information. If this is the text that you've written, you have after it, in brackets, the name of the author and the year of the publication. This is called a citation. And down at the bottom of the last page, you have your reference list. And this is where you tell the reader, and this is the book. If you want to follow up on that information, if you thought that was interesting, then go and read the book. And the book is Smith A. We'll call the book The Meaning of Life.
What?
The Meaning of Life.
The name of the book.
The name of the book is The Meaning of Life. Okay, very deep, philosophical book. And it's either italics or underlined. Then you have the city of publication and the name of the publisher. There are variations on this. So you can have a situation where the book is edited, for instance, or there are two authors. But generally speaking, this is the starting point. So what you're saying here is, I have an idea, or this idea has come from, and it's come from this book, and if you want the details, you can read it yourself.
Quotation mark, isn't it?
Go down here. Now, if this text is a quote, then you put quotation marks around it, and you put the page number. So here's a quote from this book. If you want to check it, go and read. It's on page 3. Here are the details. Okay? So there are variations on this, as we'll say, because there are so many different types of sources. But generally speaking, this is how you reference something. It's made up two pieces of information. One is the citation, one is the reference.
So you have it.
Okay?
Is that in-text?
This is an in-text citation. What's called an in-text citation.
Are you going to judge it as a reference on the site?
From websites?
Yeah, from websites.
Not today, but that's if we can do.
Okay.
So Harvard is a system. We just put the information and it automatically will give us the all the citations and everything. Or we
No.
just need to put
You need so the important thing here is you've read the book. So you've got the book or the article or whatever it is, and very often on the website it'll tell you how to reference it. Okay, but it's not difficult. All you need to know is who the author is, what the year is, what the name of the book is, and
because Microsoft Word we have a citation reference in Microsoft Word. You can put the whole information and
right. Okay, so there are systems that purport to offer a referencing. There is a difficulty that they aren't always 100% accurate. There are instances where you can put in the information, it'll come up with a reference. Try to avoid those. There's no need for you to use that because it's easy, because you've got the book or the article in front of you. So don't use other systems because you're not sure how accurate they are. And you need to build up this skill yourself. The complexity is, of course, that there's all sorts of different types of references. So there's the books that we've been talking about here, but there's also contributions to books. So where someone has written a chapter within a book that's edited by someone else. There's editions of books. So this came from the third edition of this particular book. And you say it's the third edition because the fourth edition and the second edition might differ. There are newspaper articles. There are journal articles, there are internet sources, there are pictures that you can reference. There's all sorts of things that you can reference. And what you should be doing then is simply saying, here's a piece of information, I got it from this location. If you wish to go and check, this is how you find it. And that's all it is. Once you've started to do that, then you can't be assessed for plagiarism. You can be assessed for poor academic writing, or lack of academic content if you've got too much material coming from other people, but it's not plagiarism because you've got the reference.
So, that's of Wikipedia, is that plagiarism?
Okay, Wikipedia.
And those people's opinions.
Right.
I think Wikipedia is forbidden for referencing.
So Wikipedia. We love Wikipedia. You don't use Wikipedia as an academic source. You don't use Wikipedia as an academic source if it is not what's called peer-reviewed.
Everyone can write whatever he wants.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've discussed this before, haven't we? So I like Wikipedia because if I'm coming across something that's new, if there's a concept or a term I don't understand, I can go into Google, I can go into Google Scholar. We talked about it last week. The week before. We can go into Google or we can go into Google Scholar and we'll get masses of information, very complicated articles, and I still don't understand the basics of what this thing is that I'm supposed to be understanding. So I go to Wikipedia to give me some understanding of what this new concept or theory is. And then I'll start to do some research. But I don't use Wikipedia as a source because it's not peer-reviewed. All of the sources that we use, published articles, published journals, publications themselves and so forth, have been assessed by others who know about these things. The difficulty with Wikipedia is anybody theoretically can change the words in it. So whilst they are very clear in a number of instances and do contain references and things like that, we can't trust it. And it's trust that's the most important thing when we're talking about academic content. So you might have heard this term bibliography. We don't use bibliographies very much. Bibliography is simply a list of all the books that you've read. So there's a difference between the reference list, which is the sources that I'm using for my work to support my thought process and argument, and the bibliography is, and here's all the other books I read. So the person who got 150 references, for instance, would have been better finding, say, 35 references that they've used and having, or 30 references, and having a bibliography of 150. Because they made the mistake of thinking, I've got to include everything. And all you're doing within an academic piece of work is demonstrating that you've read various pieces of information, you're acknowledging the sources of that, and you're coming to your own conclusion or your own particular viewpoint. So in the reference list, some small details. The reference list at the bottom then is always in alphabetical order. If there are authors of the same surname, they're just simply in author order. But in date order. But all of this is explained in the Harvard guide available on the Moodle web. Once you've got the idea that you need to reference, the question is only then, what is the format of the reference? So the format of a reference for a website is different than the format of the reference for a book. But once you've got the idea of you need to reference, it's just a question of finding out what the format is.
Why is it called Harvard Referencing Style?
I think because it came from Harvard University.
No.
That's my assumption. So good referencing supports your work. It demonstrates the level of your reading and ability to argue. It carries marks, of course. And it protects you from any accusation of plagiarism. So we looked at Turnitin. I want to spend a bit of time talking about free essays and essay mills. So an essay mill is a site where you can purchase an essay. Essay mills guarantee that they're plagiarism free. And what that means is they have used a Turnitin or Turnitin-like system to put the work through so that the work comes up as usually 0% on similarity. So we were asking before about the levels of Turnitin. You were saying 20% below 20% is okay. Generally speaking, all academics have to check all pieces of work where the Turnitin similarity is greater than 20%, and we have to report on that. But all academics also know that the key areas, the key students that you need to look at are the ones that are coming in with a very low similarity. Because if you're writing an essay and nothing in your essay is the same as anything else that's being produced, that's very odd. Why haven't you used a reference that's been used anywhere else? Why haven't you got a quote that's been taken from a reference to support your argument?
You're supposed to read some books.
Yeah, so you must have some similarity. There must be something in your essay, surely, that says, I got this idea from someone else, and you can tell it's someone else's idea because the words are the same. So most academics check all the work. And with experience, you start to get an idea when you're marking the work whether there are likely to be any issues that haven't been picked up by Turnitin. So Turnitin is only one source of information for an assessor or a marker, the tutor marking your work. So essay mills will guarantee, theoretically, no Turnitin score, but that's immediately a red flag of warning. They're also usually not very good.
This I didn't get it.
Sorry?
I didn't get it, what essay means.
What's a
I didn't understand what essay meals and...
essay mill?
Yeah.
So an essay mill is simply a website where you can buy buy essays. So that's good. It's good that you're saying you don't know what an essay mill is.
It's things we don't know about it. You're teaching us to go and buy things.
You will find about this. Outside, all the time, there are people handing out cards. Are you struggling with the timescales? You've got an assignment you don't know what to do? I can help you. Everywhere. Okay? So I'm telling you about them because they're not something you can keep hidden, thinking, ooh, I've got this little card from Joe the essay writer. We know about them. They're easy to find. They're on the websites. Yeah, so there's loads of them. If you go into ukessays.com, okay, they offer help to do everything.
I can do something. I can do an assignment with my language and translate it to English.
You could do.
Oh,
Could do.
I mean, it could be
cheater.
Yeah, that's right. You could you could get an essay in a different language and translate it. Yeah, we would know. Okay, you can use Google Translate to take, for instance, a Chinese essay and turn it into English. We would know. Because that's how Turnitin works. Yeah, it does all of those things. It isn't just an English language site. It takes.
I didn't know about this essay.
Yeah, no, well, you will know. So I'm telling you early, don't get involved. Okay?
Oh my.
Okay, so there are loads. They've got, UK essays, I think, have got something like 330,000 essays. The best thing to do in the end is very simple. Just read some stuff, put it together in an argument, come up with a conclusion, and tell us where you found the information. That's all it is. So the penalties for all of this are potentially expulsion from the university. If you buy an essay and we can prove it, you'll get expelled from the university. If you plagiarize more than twice, on the third occasion, you'll be expelled from the university. Any time you're found guilty of collusion, falsification, etc., you'll get a mark of 0. You may have to resit the same module next year. So when we find it, we penalise. And we will attempt to find it, because we have all these systems. But in the end, what we want is a degree of trust between ourselves that you'll do the right thing and we'll support you in your learning. That's, in the end, what we're here for. So just simply then, quote, cite and reference. That's all you need to do. There's a quiz online. We don't have time to do the quiz, but there's a quiz online that you can undertake. There's all sorts of help available to you. There's no reason for any of this to be an issue. And I apologise for taking up nearly 2 hours of your time talking about something that for everybody in this room will not be an issue.